Hi, I'm Shay Oliver. Welcome to the Priority Paradigm. I'm sharing stories of amazing people who have made radical changes in their lives for something more important. Today, I'm joined by Paul and Tammie Limoges, and they have a truly amazing story to tell you. So without further ado, take it away.
Hi, all right. Well, I'm Tammie. So I would say that our story starts actually more than 20 years ago. I'm from Arkansas, Paul's from Quebec, Canada, and somehow the two of us met up with an international group traveling the world, and together we really both had this passion for learning about cultures and seeing places from around the world. Fast forward more than 20 years, we are now have 3 teenagers and have been working for 20 years in nonprofit executive positions. And so one day, one of our teenage daughters brought to our attention a really cool video they saw online. And it was a gentleman who was talking about life changes and how we all get caught up in the expected thing that you're supposed to do, living the American dream, and
Right.
working until you retire and saving your money and, the really typical things. Nothing wrong with it. But we realized that we had been married for 20 years, had 3 kids that were growing up a little faster than what we had thought would happen. And it was a really inspirational video that talked about seeing the world and experiencing things and dreaming beyond what you're sort of expected to do. And so from there, that video prompted a conversation among our family of 5. And we have this really awesome picture of us actually in our office, all gathered around the couch, because just hanging over the couch was this beautiful world map. And we're all standing there looking at different countries and having this discussion about, where would you want to go? Well, where would you want to go? Well, if we could do something, what would you do? And so the story began, and that was about 1.5 years ago.
Yeah, a year and a half ago. And for us, what was important with our family is because we love our kids and we love our family. And we always said when we got married that we want to travel with our kids.
Right.
And life got in the way. And for some reason, we have small travels here and there. And we said for us to travel is not to be a tourist, but to understand better culture and be involved with and engage in the culture that we're in.
Sure.
And also what was very important is that for everyone in our family to be on board. And if one of the kids said, oh no, I don't want to miss my high school year and I want to stay with my friends, well, we would not have forced it. So for one of our daughters, she said yes right away. I don't care. I'm going. I want to go. For the other one is, I need to think more about this. And it took her about a month to talk with her sister, with friends, with us as parents. And once everyone was on board, then we really solidify our plans to move forward with the project.
And our oldest, our teenage son, who's very easygoing, was, whatever happens, we're good. It's fine. See what happens. So we said, okay, when we finally got to the point, we said, okay, here's what we want to do. We want to really shake up our lifestyle big time. So sell the house, potentially change the jobs that we're currently working in, work out a budget of how could we live in a different way. And we want to see the world, and we want to do it with our kids before they're grown up and moved out and doing their own thing with their own family. So that started the ball rolling. We put our house on the market. I started putting together budgets of what if we did this, if we went to these countries, if we spent this much time here, where would we stay? How would we make this happen? How much money do we need to have coming in? How much do we have saved up, or would we get from the sale of our house? What are the different things that we could do to make money while we're traveling around? So a lot of different things that really over about 1 year's time, we started writing those dreams out, putting it all on paper, making it all start making a little more sense. There were certainly moments along the way where there were a lot of butterflies in the stomach And one of us would say, "Oh my God, what are we thinking?" And the other would have to sort of talk them off the ledge and go, "That's fear talking. Just like force that away and keep thinking, like keep the ideas flowing of what could happen." And so in I guess March of this year, we put our house on the market. And was that the first time or the second time?
Second time.
The second time. The first time we put the house on the market and it didn't sell. And we had only left it on about maybe 8 weeks. And at that point we said, maybe it's not time. And so we took the house off the market. We realized later how much more prep we really needed. So it was sort of the universe talking to us that we were not ready. But when we put it on the market the second time, literally the first 2 couples who came to look at it both brought offers. And so the very first people who looked at our house bought it.
Wow.
And so suddenly we were like, oh my God, we have to know what we're doing now.
Now it's real, because and before that, I mean, we reorganized a lot of things in the house. We minimalized and sold a lot of things, getting rid of things. So that's part of the process for us of cleansing the energy and making sure that we're ready. Because the question is also, after this great project, what do we want to do when we come back? Do we want to come back as we were and it's a big, long, extended vacation? Or are we changing for...
Will we come back?
Will we come back?
We don't know.
And who knows? So, and the other thing for me is like to have a great conversation and be excited about doing something is one thing, but then when things become real, then we look at each other and say, are we sure we want to do this? It's uncharted territory, for us to say, and for everyone. So it's not just us as a couple. We have 3 kids, and so on. So
essentially where we are now is that a few days ago we returned from Central America. We spent the summer with all 3 teenagers. Actually, our son went to Thailand and Japan for a month.
Oh, nice.
And then we let him go without us on that expensive little tour because it was a dream area for him. And then after he returned, 6 days later, the 5 of us flew to Mexico, spent some time there, then went down to Guatemala and Belize, and basically have spent the summer. We returned a few days ago, and we're at my sister's house spending this last week before we go to Virginia, which is where we used to live, where the remaining of the things that we own are in a storage building there. And we will get his college stuff, take him to Canada. He decided to go to university in Canada. And then the 4 of us, my husband and I and our 2 daughters, fly to Europe. So in Europe, we have currently planned, it is right now August. We will be there all of September, October, November, December, in lots of different countries. And that's as far as we've planned. We really only know through 2018, and we will see what happens when 2019 comes in. We may decide to move back to the US. We may decide to move somewhere else. We really want to explore different options. And for me, I had been doing contract work for about the past year in nonprofits, and I can do that work from a distance. So that lends itself to this type of work. Paul had to leave a job that he had been at for 4 years, 5 years?
3.5 years.
Okay, 4 years, so close to 4. And he's now gotten a contract as well that he'll be doing while we're traveling. We're planning to stay, we rent homes for anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks at a time. And then we can move to a different place and really get a chance to explore a lot of different places. Right now, we know that we're going to be in Czech Republic, Hungary, Croatia, Poland, Italy. And then we'll see at the end of the year how it goes.
And then the other thing also is the coordination for our daughters that they are starting 11th grade. So now they just started last week online school.
Oh,
so
sure.
they're both enrolled. Yeah. So then as we travel, which will be a great learning experience, but they can continue their high school and maybe finish earlier and plan to go to university right now in Canada as well. to explore that different culture that I belong to, and maybe in Ontario, in Ottawa area, Ontario, Canada.
So we have done a lot of different things. We worked for different organizations. We've lived in several different states, North Carolina, Virginia, Arkansas, Colorado. We've moved around. We've explored different places in the United States. We also have worked for others, and we have owned a couple of businesses ourselves. Again, just kind of trying to find what's that thing that feels right for the long term. And we found several things that felt really good for the short term, but a year would go by, maybe 2 years would go by, and you just get that itch of there's something more out there and I'm not feeling like I'm getting it. I haven't found it yet. So what is that thing? And so we start up businesses. We've tried a lot of different types of professional things that we've done. And we love working in nonprofits, and we love helping people, and we want to do things that make a difference professionally, but also personally.
Sure.
So we want to incorporate that into our lives.
Sure.
And for me, my philosophy in this type of project is that it's not a long term. I think it's kind of shift gear. So I can be working 5-6 years being in one place, and then I'll look at Tammie and we'll say, well, maybe it's time for a different adventure. And and then we let life help us with that. So if I start applying for jobs and in a specific state that we want to discover and things happen, then we follow that and we make things happen. And for example, our trip moving to Virginia, I have family there, and we opened a business or two of things that we've never done before, but we look at each other and we said, why not? And there was a wine store and craft beer and gourmet food, and we always find a way to help the community and the nonprofits. So we had a program called Wine for a Cause, where we were doing wine tasting that would benefit the nonprofit in the community where we were. So even though it was a for-profit wine business, we tried to incorporate elements that will help the community that we're in.
Very cool.
Now we're just seeing where life takes us.
Very cool. So how many people said, are you guys crazy, when you were getting ready to head to South America?
Well, I can start, because when I had to quit my job and talking with my boss there, and then the board of director, everyone and the staff, they all look and say, oh my gosh, I want to do this. Everyone I talked with, they all want to do it, but they're in a place in their life where they cannot. But that's what's not true. Yes.
Everyone thinks they can't do it because we find reasons why we can't do it. There's never going to be enough money, and there's never going to be enough time. There's never going to be that time when it's comfortable. Really, to do something like this is to go outside of what you know as comfort and be okay with things being a little bit uncomfortable and not really being sure what's going to happen or where you're going to be or where our family's going to be next year. We'll be together somewhere. Our girls are going to be doing school online. We're going to be working, making some type of income, and we're willing to do whatever that is to live the lifestyle that we want, to have the experiences. So we were willing to sell half of our furniture and to sell our house and to get rid of all kinds of things that we really don't need to do something that we want to experience.
So as you ran up to that point of getting on that airplane to head to South America, you had each other, so that when one of you said, oh no, I don't know about this insane plan, the other one could say, oh, here's why we're doing it, and pick each other up. Did you ever both go down at the same time?
I don't know that we have. I think that quite often it's that one starts going that way, and so automatically the other one sort of feels that my time to be the cheerleader and figure this out. And so you sort of lift it back up. And I think that happens with our daughters too. So if we both started feeling that, they were sort of the voice of reason to kind of remind, well, but here's why we're doing this. Think about where we're going to be next year. Think about where we're going to be next month, or whatever, but it kind of brings you back to that, oh yeah, we get to have that experience together, and then we'll see from there. But I do think, more people said, as Paul said, not that many said, you're crazy, what are you doing? But almost everyone has said, oh, I so envy you. I could never do that. Or how do you do that? It's just really going outside of the box that most people sort of, I don't know, we've put ourselves in.
We do.
Yeah.
I agree. So what's usually your response when somebody says, I'm envious? How can you possibly do this? Aren't you afraid you're not going to retire?
I'm absolutely afraid, but the fear is like, you just push it aside, because we could live the traditional American lifestyle, and we could both have, our 2 incomes, decent incomes, and save money. And when we retire, we go and travel and do things. For one, we won't have that experience then with our kids, which was really important to us to have that experience with them and to show them the world. But I think also there's never a guarantee that you make it to retirement. We all just seem to think that we're invincible, and it's going to be, you get to live to be 100, and when you're 60, you're retiring and hanging out at the beach and going. And most people I know that are 60 or more haven't retired, and they're not sure when they're going to retire, and they've been saving, but they never get comfortable with the amount of money they've saved up that's going to last them the rest of their lives, if they even live to that point. And so we just decided we're not waiting.
Or someone gets sick and then you cannot go because you're not healthy enough. The
Right.
type of travel is, so it's not the tourist route, but it's not the hardcore backpacking. It's kind of an in-between as a family of 5 and trying to speak the language where we are. But I think we are, I feel it, an inspiration to a lot of folks
Yes.
want to do something like this, and we're really willing to help out. And sometimes we toy with the idea, well, maybe we should coach or develop some coaching strategies to help people to get there, because to get there, there's a lot of things that needs to happen before, in the mind, in the heart, and
there's more things internally than externally that you have to prepare. Actually, internally, it's just this constant of getting your emotions right, and fighting some of the logical. You need to have some logical in there and budget and understand what you're doing, but you also have to also lead with what feels right and not just what's in your head.
Sure. So what's your biggest fear about going and doing something like you're doing?
Well, not having the funds to do everything we want to do, or getting to a point where we have left secure jobs and the money gets to a point where we say, ooh, we have to go back and we have to just take any job, and we have to, come back to what would be expected of us, a respectable American family. For me, that's probably the biggest fear. I'm really excited about the change that we've made, and we're already feeling so much freer in so many ways. Some of the things that you stress about, you really realize they're silly. That
like
they
what?
just, well, you worry when are you going to get the vacation? When are you going to actually reach that magical number in your bank account that you're going to start feeling secure? And I just think it never happens. And so you start letting some of that go and not throwing all caution to the wind. I mean, we still want to take care of our family and make sure we're all healthy and we're planning accordingly. But we also want to just enjoy life and really enjoy our time together in all stages, not just after we're a certain age and our kids are older and they've got their own kids. And we want to enjoy this whole process.
And speaking of process, the kids have been involved in it as well, from the packing and cleaning their room, of getting rid of stuff to sell or to donate, to even moving. I mean, packing boxes and carrying boxes, put in the U-Haul truck and things like that. But they were so motivated in doing it, and oftentimes it gave us the courage to pursue and to continue, and to, because like Tammie said, is the travel together. And it's not all rosy and great. There are always challenges, but that's part of the experience. For example, in South America, in Central America, long travel day from Guatemala to southern Mexico, and Tammie was sick. And so that means kids need to take leadership in helping out, especially at the border. And when you wait for hours, there's no air conditioning, and bring water to mom and do take care of, and things like that. And these are the type of experience that brings us, again, together. That I think as a family unit, could this happen in a regular setting in the US when we both work? But we're not as much there. Then the kids each have their room and they play the video game or on their phone or things like that. Here in a small Airbnb, it's a 1-bedroom and we're all together, and so it's learning to respect each other when someone needs time alone, to take that time and to respect that. And it's not always working, but for the most part, I think we grow as a family with this. So.
We I think it's important that I state that we are in no way wealthy at all. We both have worked in nonprofit organizations, and for almost, the great majority of both of our careers have been in nonprofits. So we don't have a lot of wealth. That's not where we come from. So this is, I think, also something people think is, oh, wow, when did you win the lottery? And that's not at all the kind of travel or experience that we're having. We're taking buses. We took an overnight bus from Mexico down to Belize. It was not glamorous. When, he talks about me being sick, there were, sometimes you can't drink water in some areas, which we all know, but then I had some ice in one of my drinks and I was violently ill. And unfortunately that fell on a travel day where we were going to be spending a solid 12 hours on several buses and going through hours through immigration at 2 different countries during that day. So, it's not all easy and glamorous. And we laugh a little bit about that because, of course, we post pictures on Facebook of our travels and different places that we go and things we're seeing. And what you don't post is when you're vomiting in a bus with 80 people watching you, or if you're soaking wet from sweat from the moment that you walk outside, and or you're sleeping with mosquito nets over you. There's a lot of things that are not glamorous about what we're doing, but they're amazing experiences that you laugh about later.
Sure. So what do you say to people? I think it's fantastic that you shared that you're not wealthy. I think that that's really important. A lot of people do have this, wow, I need 7 figures or more in my bank account before I can do this. So you've made the choice then to head to places that you're not staying in London, you're not in Paris, you're not in places that are more expensive. What do you say to people that are like, wow, isn't that terribly dangerous?
I think it's such a myth. People are scared of what they don't know. And so, there's some common sense that you have to put into play. There are parts of Detroit or New York City or wherever, big cities, that I won't go to at night alone, especially. And you have to incorporate that same thing into everywhere you go. There is a lot of common sense that has to be used, but essentially people are amazing all over the world. And if you try just a little bit to incorporate a little of their language or a little bit of the cultural things that they want to show you, they want you to experience what they do. And if we think as Americans or Canadians of someone from another country coming to visit, you want to show them what it's like to be here. You want them to have a little experience of that. And people are the same wherever you go. If you ask for a little help and you try just a little bit to, say hello in their language, to ask a question, to introduce yourself, learn just a little bit, they always really try to help you out and to welcome you there. So
very cool.
Yeah, we really haven't had a lot of, there are some cultural norms that you have to be aware of. So certain places you go, pickpocketing is really common, and you just have to be careful and use your common sense.
Well, and part of the common sense is, dress modestly. Don't put all your jewelry that you own and, and things like that. But as you engage in these type of travel, hopefully some research are being made. And for me as a dad, as a parent, as a husband, I don't want to put my family in harm's way, but it's to balance the right place to visit at the level also that the kids are. And Tammie kept saying, we're not going to do hardcore backpacking or things. I'm not interested in that. I said, okay, I understand. And so we balance each other of what we want, because we want to have fun. And it's not, again, all the glamour, but it's not all the challenges that goes with it. It's the right balance of things. And I think we found it in our conversation together as a couple, but also as a family, about what are your goals. And the preparation, I think, is important before you go there. And how do we, and are you interested to learn about other culture? So then you're engaged and open. And for me, I speak a little bit of Spanish, which is very helpful. And I had the chance to really improve it, because people were speaking Spanish to me. And, I said, if you don't understand, sometimes you just smile. Say, see, and they continue to talk. And I did that learning English, and it worked.
Sure, certainly. So with teenagers, I know I've read from different people that have traveled and stuff, they often travel with young children and then come back to the U.S. when the kids get to high school age. And one of the things I've often heard is they don't want to steal their children's high school experience. I don't know if you've heard that or not, but
yes.
Did you have any sense as you're heading into this that you might be doing that?
We talked a lot about that. We talked to our teenagers a lot about that. Our son was, as it turned out, it worked out for him to finish his senior year. But for our girls, they just finished their sophomore year. So now they've started their 11th grade year, and a lot of discussions happened about, that this may mean, well, it definitely will mean probably not going to homecomings for these last 2 years of your high school, probably not going to prom for the 2 years of your high school. There are your friend groups that are going and hanging out, going to football games and doing all these things, and you're going to see it on social media, and you're not going to be there. But what you are going to be doing is going to this country, staying in this place, having these experiences, seeing some of those things that you learn about in your history class, but you're going to actually be standing there looking at it. And so they were completely on board. Honestly, our girls preferred to have that experience of really seeing it and living it than just learning about it in a book or online. And so I think for them, of course they miss their friends and they want to be able to do some of the normal teenage things. And we hope that in some of the places that we are able to, short-term live, that they'll be able to meet people their age and have some of that fun experience, because we really don't want to go places and just be a tourist. We want to go and stay there and be a part of the community for a short time. So they'll get a chance to see and do some of those things, just not exactly the way that it would have been if we had stayed in the same spot we were in.
And just to add to this, our daughters and son, I think they're taking more leadership. So one of our daughters bought a video camera, and she's starting to do vlogging. It's all new terms for me, but she knows what she's doing. And I think it's wonderful that she's recording some of the experience that we're having and sharing with her group of peers, her age, that are all in tune with these things. And and when I look at the video, so it's fun also for us, because for me it was the old picture, and so on.
Sure.
So we're learning. But also the other part is, I just realized by listening to Tammie talk, is always been involved in nonprofit that has to do with global education and experiential education. So all the concept of getting out of your comfort zone and being with people that speak a language that you don't understand, but you're still involved with them, because we both travel with people. So I don't know if we mentioned before.
Cool.
So that organization, that's how we met. So that's why a small town French Canadian and small town Arkansas met. But so these values always been there for us, and like we said, just to relate to your question, our goal was to take the kids and travel like this when they were younger, but the opportunity didn't come, which now I really appreciate, because we have adult conversation on things. Yes, about traveling, but we talk about women's issues. We talk about political issue happening in the different countries that we visit, and especially when we were in Guatemala, and we stayed in a place where it's called Mondo Maya, and a lot of good experience and conversation about the world of the Maya, in the history and the present, how they try to conserve the language. I mean, there's no book that could explain as well as what they had experienced, being surrounded by the ruins in Tikal, Guatemala, but also where we were staying and being involved with the people there that didn't speak English that much. So we had to translate with my, halfway Spanish and so on. But then they were researching on their computer also their translation of things. And so all this, it makes it that it confirms that all the decisions that we've made so far have been great.
Very, very cool. So as you guys have done this, what has been the biggest surprise to you about how you've changed?
The biggest surprise about how we've changed.
Or
Yeah, I don't feel that we have changed, other than, realizing the things that are important and not fretting about some of the insignificant things. It's funny how in just a normal life, you think about, I forgot to put gas in my car and now I'm going to be 2 minutes late to get to that. It's just the one thing after another living, that there's a freeing part of this, that we still have to worry about catching that bus or that plane, or how we're going to get to the next place, or is the check-in going to go okay with this Airbnb? Can we find the key? Whatever it is, there are always things, there's responsibility, but really not sweating the small stuff, I guess. And we're working on it. It's not perfect. We have moments where there's just something so trivial that one of us gets uptight about, and we have to work that out. I think for our girls, probably more so than for me, at least, I think they're having more meditation. They're reading more and focusing more on how they feel and their emotions and being in tune with that moment. And so I thought that I haven't gotten there yet. I hope that I do. But they have really been conscious of each moment, each place, what they're experiencing so far.
Well, and in fact, while you're talking, I'm trying to get the girls to come.
They're sitting in the same room with us, watching us talk to you.
So you have an audience with you.
And they said, no.
Well, let's talk about them, since now I know that they're there. So you've talked about some of the changes you've seen in them. Do you think those changes would have been happening had you stayed in the United States?
No. And I think that, when I think about what they're doing now with reading more meditative type of focused books, just being a little bit more present in the moment, I think that they're typical teenagers. They really are. They have a big friend group. They all go hang out at each other's house. Our typical house weekend would be 8 or 9 girls all filling our basement with, movies and football games and laughing at, so it was a typical thing. They are very, very typical teenagers. But I think that this experience, planning for it ahead of time, there's a maturity of knowing what you're about to do and being a part of the responsibility for what you're about to do. So where are we going? why should we go there? What is there to see or do? Is it a safe environment for us? All those things they really got to be a part of that research. And so now as we start to actually do it, not only do they see that planning come to life, but they're just more centered, I think.
Well, and for me, I have, I guess, two examples. So we rented a car in some place in Mexico, and then one of my daughter came with me to get the tickets for the bus station. And that helps a lot because my limited Spanish, so they tell me the price in pesos, what's the conversion, to make sure that it's the right thing. So she does the research right beside me and tells me. So it's kind of a team approach. And that did that a few times during the trip, and then converting the money in Belize dollars or Guatemala quetzal and so on. So that was helpful. And my other daughter, the last day that we came, we had booked a shuttle to take us to the airport. The shuttle never showed up, or it showed up an hour late. So the stress of
So we're literally standing out on the street corner with our luggage, waiting on a shuttle to take us the 45-minute drive to the airport in hopes of getting our plane in time.
And she's here, and then she said, Dad, what do we do? I think we need to find another mode of transportation. And so we talk it out to each other, and I think she suggested that I go talk to the security guard to borrow his phone and to call and try to call the shuttle company and so on. So, I mean, these are experiences that she helped me to stay calm and focus and say, okay, what do we do now if it doesn't show up? And, and so on. So these are, I mean, small example, but that I have not seen before in our daily life. So these, so it makes me in tune with them. I mean, they have the leadership inside of them, but as a parent, to see it being fulfilled.
So not to put words in your mouth, but are you more confident now of your girls being able to manage their own futures and take care of themselves than you were when you were living the traditional life?
We've actually said, so they are just 16 2 or 3 months ago. They haven't been 16 for very long. And just in the last month, we've had this conversation that I swear they could move out and live on their own and be fine right now. They really are at a place of, they're so mature and understanding, and they would make mistakes just like anyone would. But honestly, at 16, barely 16, they have a maturity and an understanding about what's going on around them that I don't think that they would have if they were in sort of the comfort of suburban life and going to school with all their friends. And there is a difference. There's a maturity and a learning and a growth that happens that just naturally happens that you don't even plan for.
Very cool. So what has been the most surprising thing? Well, let me ask something first. Has your perception of life in the United States changed since you left the United States?
I think our perception of life in the United States changed before we left. I think that that had something to do with our leaving. I think the culture has, there's a lot of divide, and of course a lot of it's political, and it's changed the way people treat each other and what's acceptable behavior. But it also has made us have a lot more conversations and do a lot more research on, things that are supposed to be family values, for instance, are kind of a big American trait. We say that we have a really strong value in families, but yet when we really start talking more about that, it's funny if you compare that, because so many American families don't have health insurance. So do we really care about those families? So many people have a lot of economic issues, can't find jobs, or the little man's being eaten up by the big corporations. So do we really value them? And then, there are so many different things with healthcare. I had 3 babies in the United States, so I've gone through the the 6-week leave that you get from your job after
Not paid.
giving birth, and it's not paid, except you use all your vacation time, which, by the way, you really need a vacation after having a baby, but that's not really considered a vacation when you use that time to try to get paid.
Right.
And you compare that to other countries, if you look at Finland or Germany or France or Canada, so many places that really do value and value the family and want to offer maternity leave and paternity leave and really give more support to those family units so that the parents can still work and have a family. And so many of those conversations came up in that year prior to us saying it's time for a change for us.
Interesting. Very interesting. So let's shift gears just a little bit. So you guys have done it. You're doing it.
We're homeless. We've done it.
Is it frightening to say that? I'm seeing you smiles.
Yeah. Well, we're fine. Like, is it frightening? I don't know. Do you think it's frightening to say that?
No, it's not frightening because we have a good support of a family. Now at Tammie's sister, and then we're going to go to my brother's house and before we go to Canada. But I think it's not as practical as it could be, because now which address do we put when we request something? So, because if you say, no, we don't have a home, so we won't have be granted some of the things that may be needed, especially if we prepare our transition back and finding a job or something like that. They always want to know what's your current address.
Right.
But I think we smile because we know we're not in the hardship homelessness.
Right.
It's by choice of traveling and getting experience. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because Tammie has a contract with a homeless shelter or organization right now working. So she's more in tune with the reality and the sadness of some of the stories behind it.
And that's a whole other American thing.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds to me you're not without a home. You're without a physical house.
That's correct.
I mean,
yes. Yeah. We literally have our stuff in a storage unit. We're fine with that. We have what we need with us right now, and we will see what happens. We really are keeping it very open, and we don't know that we will come back to the United States, but we might. Maybe we'll come back and get a regular 9-to-5 type job eventually. We're not closed to that at all, but we know that that's not where we are right now, and we need to have this experience and really figure out what do we want next. Maybe we will end up somewhere that we just love so much that we want to find jobs there and do something, really be stable there. Right now, online work is the way to go for us until we figure that out.
Very cool. Very cool. So with people that are looking at you guys and saying, wow, you guys are doing it. I mean, I'm so jealous of you. I wish I could do that. What do you tell them?
You can. You can do that. We are nothing special. We are nothing special. We have nothing different than anyone else has, but you definitely need to plan a little bit for it. You need to figure out what your budget is, or if you can find some type of income that will support you in some way. Doesn't have to be a lot. I mean, it's really a fraction of what we're used to, but you can do it. You just have to take the leap of faith.
Well, and for me also, I would, and we're willing to help and to help coach or to share our experience. And thank you for giving us that opportunity, but also to answer some questions. So why would you like to do this? What's your purpose? And, and sometimes and what's the right length of time, and what's the right experience for you to achieve in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So for us, it's the family is important. For someone else, maybe it's to go solo for a month, alone, and do something to get unstuck, or for whatever reason.
Sometimes you just
is
need a
there.
vacation.
You just need a vacation.
Not an American vacation, a real vacation.
A real vacation. No
Yeah.
laptop, no cell phone, no email. A real vacation away to figure out what you want. But for someone who really wants to experience it, I think that it's about a little bit of planning and not letting fear get in your way.
Well, and I think to trust life. If it feels good in your instinct, you go with it. And I mean, that's my belief, even though it's scary because society and our culture says, no, this is what you should be feeling. And then, but no, and for us, I mean, so far, I mean, when the house sold, we got that offer the first weekend, then we knew that it was happening. And everything worked out, I mean, at a fast pace that the kids had. We had to find an Airbnb so they finished school. So we started our trip basically in our town.
In the town we were living in, we had to stay
before
for several weeks at an Airbnb just to finish the school year out. And that started the adventure.
Yeah.
That's kind of a good
It was
start.
fun.
Yeah. So was there, as you began to conceptualize of what this was going to be, do you recall any like major step or major change inside of you that finally was the accelerant or the thing that said, I'm doing it?
Well, first of all, that video that Tammie mentioned at the beginning. So there was one question in that the guy said, he said, we interviewed 100 older people on their deathbed to say, what's your biggest regret in life? And 100% said not spending more time with family and not to travel more. I wish I would travel more. And this for me was the trigger to say something is about to happen. And I look at our family and we presented this idea and had those conversations. That's where I felt like it was the trigger inside. It needed to happen inside of me or us for the external to materialize.
Right.
So the first time that the house did not sell, we were disappointed a little bit, but we all said, well, it was not meant to be. There's more, there's something we're not ready for. And we realized that we were not to have either the readiness for the kids to finish school or whatever reason it is. And we go through life with that type of feeling. I mean, if we have each other and we're healthy and if it feels good in our heart, that means it's the direction that we need to go. So.
Very cool.
Right?
What about for you, Tammie? Was there like a trigger, a sudden, I'm changing direction doing this? Was it that video or?
Well, the video is really what started it all. We all kind of stood around in our study with our mouths open, watching the video going, oh my, that's how I feel. That was the thing that we always wanted to travel and with the kids and we always wanted to do this. And all of a sudden they're 16 and 18 years old. And where did those years go? That just flew by all of a sudden. And so, watching that video inspired us. And then for me, it was probably a little bit more practical that I sat down and started working through budgeting. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of took the 6 or 7 month period of time and said, okay, if we sold the house now and I planned through the rest of 2018, what could we do? How much would we need to survive, to be able to pay for a place to stay, the food that we have, the travel that we would need to do, to still do some fun things. How much per person could we spend on, each meal? And so I kind of put the numbers to paper. And after I did that, then I was able to say, okay, actually, we could do this. We can make this happen. And so then it was like, oh, we're doing it. When that came together, I was like, we're doing it.
Very, very cool. So, we keep talking about this video. What is this video? Do you recall the name of it?
Yeah, but we'll have our daughter look it up now so she can.
We can send it to you.
Yeah, we can send
great,
it.
Because I do want to include it with this because it's very obvious that it was very influential. So, other than the video, were there any people, resources, heroes that you guys, began to follow or read about, or, read blogs or books or anything like that that kind of got you even further over the hump and said, let's do it?
I think online following minimalism sites. And so on Facebook, there are a couple of minimalism sites, and really realizing that you get caught up in thinking that you need a lot of material things that you don't need. And so more and more we would share, one of us would see something about minimalism and share it to the other one, like, see that, watch this. And then you start realizing how much stuff you have. And then when you start cleaning out and selling stuff or giving away stuff, donating stuff, then you really realize, you're like, I just cleaned all that out and I still have, 6 more sets of dishes. Why do I have this? So I think the minimalism part was something that, of course there are the TV shows that you see, tiny house hunters or people living, abroad. There's different TV shows for minimalism and for
International
travel.
House Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
and
these type of shows.
Those things we got more and more inspired by watching people's stories. And actually it just reminded me at one point, there was a International House Hunters TV show, and there was a couple that we saw on there that he was French and she was from Denver, and they had lived in Denver, and we used to live in Denver, and they had moved to Uruguay and bought a house on the International House Hunters television show. And it was 7 years later, and the show had done a follow-up, and they were still there. And so I went online and found them and started conversing with them by email. And they had decided, after they had gone there to visit and they loved it, and then they bought this place, and then they decided to stay long term, and they had a couple of kids there and just loved the style, the culture fit them more, even though she was American, he was French, and we just thought I thought it was kind of a funny coincidence. French speaker, American. We were both living in, Colorado, and so we had considered Uruguay at one point as a place to go. We still haven't made it there. Maybe we will on this trip. We'll see.
Certainly. So, if you were given an opportunity to tell somebody who's hasn't seen the video yet, who's thinking, I need to make a big change, I want to go travel, I want to do something different with my life, and you could only tell them one thing, what would you tell
them? It can be a question.
Yes, of course it can.
Well, for me, it's that what's important to you in your life. Because for us, it's travel. Maybe for someone else, it's not about travel, but they can still do something drastic that will make them happy. And so I think for us, like I said, we utilize the vehicle of traveling and exploring other culture, because that's important. But maybe for someone else, it's writing a book or, running a marathon. Is, I think, asking the question, what's important to you? What are your dreams? Sometimes I realize that question is very hard to answer. People don't have time. We say, my dream? You telling me, if you can do whatever you want in your life, money is no object, time is no object, what will it be? Most people cannot answer that question. So it's hard to make plans to focus on something that is important to you if you don't take time to introspect and realize what your dreams are. So I will research more that, or coach, or explore in order to help the person to say, yes, you can do it,
We all have bucket lists in our family, and we try to check a few things off of those bucket lists. Every couple of years, you kind of go back to them and say, are we living the life that we wanted? Are we checking off those things on our list, things to do before you kick the bucket? And so for us, it's traveling internationally, it's living abroad, it's having the experience not just together, which is very important. And we've done that over the years, but really having our kids grow up and have that same passion and kind of the zest for life, you know, to want to experience things outside of the norm. Nothing wrong with someone who grows up in a small town and stays in the small town and they love where they are and they love what they're doing, and that's great as long as that's what really makes them happy.
Mm-hmm.
But if there are some other internal dreams that you have, not letting fear get in the way of pursuing them.
Very, very nice. So now that you're in the middle of doing it, do you have any regrets?
Not for me.
No?
Not at all, because I'm still excited. And for me, I go with what I mentioned before, is that if it feels good, that means the right thing. And all the way to in this process, it felt good for me, and now it still feels good. Like our month abroad was great, and it was also great to come back, because now we're getting ready for another transition to put our son to university and us to travel to Eastern Europe for the next 4 months.
Or longer. And then we'll see what's next for us. And I think we're open, and we'll go with what feels right at the time. And whatever it is, for me, it's important to be excited about any plans that we're making, or any transitional plan, if it's to come back either in the US or somewhere else to have a regular job. Because for me, one of my goals is I want to go back in the executive nonprofit job and give a big boom. Maybe now I'm refreshing myself. I said to my employer and the staff I was working with that it's kind of a reset, a little bit. I'm ready for something different. And I'm going to miss you guys, and send pictures, and people are envious, some of it. But when we come back, it's going to be as exciting than what we're doing right now, because we see this as a project, as an adventure together as a family or as a couple. And now when the girls go to university, it's an adventure for them as well. So I think living life without regret, that's a great question. I always said, since I'm an older teenager or young adult, I don't want to ever say, oh, I regret something in my life. And we remind each other oftentimes, and it goes back to, it's not always rosy.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you do is not always rosy. And you might look at Facebook and think that everybody's life is perfect. It's not. Whether you're living in the suburbs or traveling the world, there are challenges everywhere, but it's really embracing those challenges, the ups and the downs. And sometimes, if you don't have the downs, then you don't realize how special the ups are. So kind of going with the flow of that and saying, okay, today might not be fantastic, but it's leading to tomorrow, which is where, we're going in the direction that we want to go in.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. So has this experience that you've had made you more confident and feeling more empowered about living your lives?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're not living it with someone else's plan. I just think I feel that way. You grow up and there's a certain expectation. Mm-hmm. So by the time you hit your 20s, you should be like finishing up college, and maybe you've met that special someone, and then you start getting pressured to get married, and then you start getting pressured to have babies, and then when are you going to work your way up the ladder to that executive role? And I think that that's sort of a general cultural thing that not every person experiences, but generally that's kind of the way things are. And when you kind of go against that a little bit and do something a little different, there's some fear and doubt that can come into play. But you also have this sense of you're controlling your own life and your own destiny, and living out the things that you maybe had only dreamt of before, and that others maybe will only ever dream of. So,
well, and for me, it's a yes also, because it's the gut feeling. I think it's trusting that instinct, that gut, that I knew that something needed to change and happen. I didn't know what or when. Mm-hmm. And I think when I made peace with the when, but I was new. I knew for sure that something would be happening. Then that's where I think it triggered things to make things happen. You know, sometimes being patient is important. So from a spiritual standpoint, if you want it now and right now and you change it, you never, I don't know, it's
Don't be your own obstacle.
exactly. So
We get in our own way most of the time. It's not really other people stopping us. We stop ourselves from doing things that we want to do or taking chances. Again, it goes back to fear for me. It usually is just a fear of something that's unknown.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Well, I really appreciate you guys taking so much time here and chatting with me today. I've got a couple of questions to kind of wrap up with. The first one, is there a way, are you guys blogging at all, or is there a way people can get a hold of you or follow your adventures?
We haven't started that for us. I actually am hoping to do that. I've been writing and taking some notes and things, but our daughter has started her vlogging, and so is that okay if I give that? So Kennedy Ray, KENNEDI RAYE. She started on YouTube. So she started her vlogs, got a couple of videos up, and she's still working on some editing. So that'll continue and should be able to follow all the adventures and fun things that we do.
Great. Now,
sorry. We have, I think, the video of
Yes, to tell you what the video. Sorry, can you just look at what the name of it is?
Okay. We have it. No.
It is not death most people are afraid of.
I know, but I was trying to figure out what the name of it is, baby.
End of life.
Travel inspiration video that will give you goosebumps.
Travel, okay.
On YouTube, that's the video. Travel inspiration video that will give you goosebumps.
Okay. That's easy enough. So if people want to get a hold of you to ask questions, would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So my email is probably the best way, or on Facebook, of course, but my email, tammie.limoges@gmail.com.
Awesome.
It's certainly welcome anyone to do that, or friend or follow us on Facebook.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I always end with this question. What question did I forget to ask you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And if it was, I didn't, that's okay too, but I usually do. There's a piece of your story and piece of this whole thing that we didn't get to. So what question should I have asked you?
Do you guys think of anything?
Yeah.
I think you covered it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Hey, I'll take a win. So,
I think you covered it. You did good.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
well, I really, really, really appreciate your time sharing your inspirational story with us. This has been fantastic, and I wish you guys only the best of luck in your travels, and I hope you and your family continue to go out there and live the lives you want to live.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for sharing our story. I hope that we can stay in touch. I'd love to see what all you find out there. I know there's some really interesting people doing some interesting things.
Indeed there are. Thank you.
Thank you.